So it's no secret that I'm a huge supporter of the indie game community. I'm always interested in seeing what new developers are capable of. So when I saw gameplay of Yummy Yummy Tummy's Fallen Legion, as somebody who was a fan of the Valkyrie Profile series, I thought I'd give it a shot. Well, does this game live up to its potential? Let's find out. So the story of Fallen Legion takes place in Phenumia, an empire that, to put it simply, has seen better days. The Emperor was recently found killed, the Empire is on the brink of economic collapse, and to make matters worse, there's the Rebel Syndicate that wants to take over the throne and the entire Empire. So it's up to you, as the Emperor's daughter, in this really shady magical book called a Grimoire, to regain the kingdom and take down this Rebel Syndicate. Now in terms of premise, I don't find the game to be that bad when it comes to that. In fact, there are interesting moments of character development. The major issue is, though, that there's lack of information given about the world that you're in. Like, who are these characters? What is this organization about? Why do I care about these other countries? In fact, who are these other countries? Because the game doesn't really explain all these things well. Now, granted, there's a little tab in the menu that tells the history of where you're in, but even after reading that, I found myself incredibly confused and wondering what was going on, and just wanting some clarity about it. In addition, there's also another issue that most people come across, in that they're going to end up getting half of the story. Now let me explain. Fallen Legion came out with 2 games, Sins of an Empire, which you're seeing on screen right now, and Flames of Rebellion, which tells the story from the Rebels' point of view. The problem with this is that Sins of an Empire came out on the PlayStation 4, which I have no problem with in that regard. Most people will end up buying. However, Flames of Rebellion came out on the PlayStation Vita, and this is something that I disagree with. Now, I have no problem with people making games for the Vita. In fact, I own a Vita right now, and that's how I was able to play Flames of Rebellion. However, if you're going to make a game, don't force your consumers to buy another system just so you can play the game, just so you can get some other clarity on what's going on in the game itself, because otherwise you're getting the Kingdom Hearts incident where people had to buy things like a PlayStation Portable or a DS or on some kind of other system just to find out what's going on in the story. And this game suffers from that, because throughout most of that time when I was playing this, because I played Sins of an Empire before I played Flames of Rebellion, so most of that time I was left confused until I played Flames of Rebellion. But not a lot of people will actually own a Vita in this generation, and let's be honest about that. Well, the story isn't the main focus of the game, so let's actually talk about the gameplay itself. The princess is able to summon up to 3 spirit entities to fight alongside with her each level. These entities are able to attack by pressing the corresponding button above their head. However, each member has a limited number of times they're able to attack before it has to recharge, so it's a matter of managing who is able to attack at each time. At the bottom of the screen, you also have a combo meter. Each time a character attacks, its icon will appear on one of the circles below. If a character reaches the last circle, it can do this attack called a Death Blow, which is this really finishing strike that not only does great damage, but can also do a status debuff to your enemies, such as reduce damage, reduce attack, or slows down. In some cases, you also have these status buffs, such as haste, or double the damage and that a character can get depending on which character gets in that circle. Characters are also able to parry enemy attacks by pressing the block button right before an enemy attacks, and you're going to need this because this is the most essential thing into the game. I cannot stress that enough. It is literally the most disheartening thing in the game that not only your combo meter falls, but that chain combo in the corner that you got racked up a high number and also increases your damage the higher it goes, just suddenly drops right there. So where does the princess fit into this picture? Well, the princess plays the role as a support character. She's able to cast these magical fireball spells, she's able to heal her allies, and she's able to resurrect your allies if they fall in battle. However, if all of your allies fall in battle and she gets attacked, it's game over, and depending on where you are, you either start the level over or start the boss fight over if you reach the boss fight. In addition, there's also RPG elements to the game, such as the gem system, where after you finish a level, it gives you a certain gem, and depending on its rarity, it can give you a certain type of buff, such as increasing your party attack or defense, or the most valuable one that I have was after I parry an enemy, it shields my entire party. On top of that, there's also another RPG element that you have where you make choices after a certain battle. and such as a plague happens in the world that you're in. So do you extort the people, do you ignore the people, or do you actually give them supplies? And depending on what you choose, it can make a matter of what happens, such as if I choose that ally, then I would get a certain buff to a character. But if I choose the right decision, it can up my morale in the game. And the morale is important because it increases your allies' health, etc. Now I do have to address two major issues with the game, and the first one is things get too chaotic for its own good. Now let me explain. When I found myself in a lot of these battles, I found myself wondering what exactly was going on screen, and a lot of it has to do with the artwork itself. Now don't get me wrong, I do like the artwork of the game. I think the game actually does look beautiful. But the problem is that when you get all these characters in this one clustered environment, it's hard to tell what exactly is going on. So you end up in cases where you swear to God that you actually blocked, but you didn't end up blocking. I'm like, I pressed the L1 button. Why did I not parry this when it showed up exactly on screen? Or why am I still not attacking? And then all of a sudden you find yourself seeing all of these little details, like all these little blue lines, all these little attack things, all this red, and it's hard to tell what exactly was going on. And that's one of the major problems with this game, because you need that time to react. And if you do not have time to react, you'll find yourself, in a lot of cases, as good as dead, especially with a certain boss fight in the game. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there is one boss fight in the game that took me about 15 times just to fight because none of my blocks actually showed up, or none of my attacks actually came out. And when you get through that situation, it becomes annoying. So the second major issue that I have with the game has to do with its repetitiveness. Now when I finished Sins of an Empire, I clocked in at around 10 to 12 hours of game time. So what should be a standard time to finish an indie game, I felt mentally drained. It was like a mentally draining journey, and why is that? Because the more and more I started playing the game, the more and more I noticed how repetitive things got. Go to a level, beat the level sends you to the world map, walk over to the next level from the world map, and then finish that level. So by the time I got to the second half of the second act, I felt myself mentally drained. And by the time I finished the game, I wasn't excited that I finished the game, I just had a sigh of relief saying, finally. And that was only with Sins of an Empire, because when I got to Flames of Rebellion, it was even worse, because not only did you have the problems that I mentioned here, not only did you have the problems that I mentioned in the first issue, but you also had other issues in Flames of Rebellion because there were also frame rate issues. So when you had moments like that, when you're trying to block, and all of a sudden your block doesn't come out, or your attack doesn't come out, it gets incredibly frustrating. So overall, how do I feel about the game, and who can I recommend this to? Well, again, I actually enjoyed the first half of this game. I enjoyed the art style, I enjoyed the combat when it actually works, but the most satisfying thing with the game is racking up high combos and getting these parries off right there. Hell, even some of the RPG systems in the game, such as like the making your own choices and the gemstone systems, I enjoyed. However, this was only for the first half. By the time it got to the second half, I found myself mentally drained and forcing myself to go through the game. And for a $20 price tag on both games, there's no way I can honestly recommend this to anybody. Now, if you're really curious about the game, I can only recommend this game at a sales price, but overall, this game just screams missed potential.